Hello, so I am going to be reviewing Deadhouse Gates by Stephen Erickson, Book 2 of Malazan Book of the Fallen. And yeah, I finished the book about a few days ago, but I wanted to let it kind of simmer and stew in my mind and kind of really think about some of the themes, some of the plots, things I liked in it, things I didn't really like, what I liked about it over Gardens of the Moon. And I think I'll probably keep this video, the first minute or so of this video, non-spoiler, and then really start talking about spoilers because there's a lot I want to talk about in this book. And I know that was kind of a different structure than I did with my Gardens of the Moon review, but I really want to kind of be able to talk about some of the characters and some of the themes and maybe give some of my predictions what's going to happen later on in the series. I think that would be pretty fun, pretty cool. So yeah, in terms of non-spoiler, I think I enjoyed Deadhouse Gates more than Gardens of the Moon, and I really like Gardens of the Moon. I think Steven Erickson definitely improves as a writer from Garden to Deadhouse. I think the prose are tighter, the sentence structure is tighter. Even the way the chapters are kind of laid out. The one thing I didn't really like about Gardens of the Moon is that it kept kind of switching between perspectives a lot in each chapter. Like you have one chapter, but each chapter will probably have like you'll be Crocus, and then it'll be Quappa, then it'll be Crocus again, then it'll be Kalam, then it'll be Quickbent, and it's like it kind of just like I don't know, it felt really disjointed, and I felt like he really changed that a lot in Deadhouse, whereas like yeah, you still switch around with perspectives in one singular chapter, but you will have like a whole like 4 or 5 pages of a particular one character, and then it might move on to another character, another section, or another group of characters. And some chapters in here are just fully one character, which I really enjoy and I really like because it's nice. It gives the story more. I don't know, feels more like a cohesive narrative and easy for me to remember what happens instead of just like being thrown information left and right all the time. It's up to me to kind of piece it all together in the moment. Um, that being said, I forget how much the word count is, but I think Deadhouse is a little bit longer than Gardens of the Moon, but not by a whole lot. Not by a whole much. If you're comparing like word count. That being said, Deadhouse Gates is, I mean, it's a dense book. It's very dense, and I think all these Malazan books are very dense. But Deadhouse Gates, I think, will 100% pay off in terms of a reread, and I think that's true for probably all these books, for all the Malazan books. But maybe probably Deadhouse Gates. I feel like there's a lot to unpack in this book and a lot to kind of go over in this book that I 100% did not get or understand or completely glossed over, that I would probably pick up more on a reread, knowing once I have the full context and where this story is kind of going. Um, and I think that's so cool. I think that makes books and media so much more worthwhile. Being able to see the foreshadowing and see some of the build up and some of the hidden nuggets of Easter eggs and information that I kind of probably missed the first time around. Um, don't get me wrong. This book is a slow burn. Now, not to say that there aren't moments of action and fast pace. There throughout the whole book there is that, but it's a slow burn. More of a slow burn, I would say, than Gardens of the Moon. But I think the ending is impactful. I think in terms of straight up action, I think Gardens of the Moon had a more action packed ending than I would say in Deadhouse Gates. I think Deadhouse Gates definitely had a lot of impactful moments and impactful scenes. Um, and I think I probably would like this a little bit more. I think I like Deadhouse Gates a little bit more than Gardens of the Moon after letting it kind of stew in my mind and simmer in my mind a little bit. Um, I don't really mind slow burns. If you're the type of reader who you don't really care for slow burns, then I think I don't know. I feel like this might not be the book or series for you because some of these books can kind of be I won't say sloggy, but they can be very slow, and the payoff comes at like 50 pages after reading like 600 pages of a book. Um, yeah, I want to kind of keep the non-spoiler section pretty quick because I really want to dive into non-spoilers. My whole non-spoiler review and summary of this is that if you really like Gardens of the Moon, if you like Gardens of the Moon, then I feel like you should probably give Deadhouse Gates a try and read Deadhouse Gates. This, even though I know Deadhouse is not, you know, takes place on the same continent as Gardens of the Moon, it still is a direct sequel, and you should read this in publication order. I know some people who read Gardens of the Moon and went to Memories of Ice and then read Deadhouse Gates. I'm reading this in publication order because that's what the author suggests, and that's how the author intended it to read it in publication order. So that's how that is how I will read it. Um, yeah, and I feel like I think I know a lot of people say that you should read up to Memories of Ice. If you're if you're at Memories of Ice and you're still kind of questioning if this is the right series for you, then maybe you should probably stop. I feel like if Deadhouse Gates, I don't know. I mean, maybe I haven't read Memories of Ice yet, so maybe my opinion might change. But I feel like if you don't like that, because like these are because you essentially have two different stories now. You have the Jenna Bacchus storyline, you have the Seven Cities storyline. I feel like if you didn't like either of those books, I don't really see how Memories of Ice is going to sway you over. I love Gardens of the Moon, so I'm already know I'm kind of locked into this series for the long haul. But I feel like I think if you're very meh on both of these storylines and both of these plots, then I have a hard time understanding if you're gonna like the rest of the series. But who knows? I could be wrong. I only read two books. Maybe I'm wrong in that assessment. Maybe I'm wrong in that. I just think asking someone to read three giant books to figure out if they want to keep reading is a big ask. And people are busy. People have lives. So I feel like if you don't like if you're meh on book one and kind of meh on book two, I feel like you could probably just stop the series. I loved both books, so I'm going to continue reading. And I already have book three right here. And my God, was it hard to get a copy of Memories of Ice on trade paperback? My God, like look how just thick of a cover this is. Like just for comparison, like Deadhouse Gates and Memories of Ice, it's like it's incredible. It's big. I got this used on Amazon. It was the cheapest I could find, which is insane to think about it. But so I haven't started it yet, but because I haven't started it because I was on vacation for a little bit and I didn't read. I don't really like read on vacation. I kind of want to just like I finished Deadhouse Gates before going on vacation, so I wanted to take that time to really contemplate and really think about what I wanted to say about this book. So that's my review. I think if you like Gardens of the Moon, please keep moving forward. I promise you. Like I know this is a slow burn. I know this is a slow, painful burn. And I really do think the second half is a little bit better than the first half of this book. And but I think it's worth your while. I think it will. It's worth the wait. It's worth the hype. It's worth the read. Okay, so now we're gonna begin into spoilers. So spoilers for Deadhouse Gates and also Gardens of the Moon as well. But I won't really be talking much about Gardens of the Moon because for the ending of Gardens of the Moon doesn't really get mentioned too much in this book at all. And I think that's good. I think that's fine. So for quick summary of what's happening. So after the events of book one, you have Kalam, Crocus, Apsalar, and Fiddler are going to seven cities in order to take Apsalar back home to Ikokan. The idea is that they're going to go through the Deadhouse Gates to go to Malazan City, and that'll give them this avenue in order to get over to Ikokan so that they can drive up Apsalar. So that being said, so those are pretty much the only characters that are present from the first book is Kalam, Kalam. Well, Quickben makes a quick cameo, but not anything of a substance really. Kalam, Apsalar, and you have Fiddler and Crocus. So they're the only main characters from the first book that make presence, and really that's about it. Really, like the first book doesn't really get mentioned too much. There's little callbacks here and there, like they talk a little bit about the dragons in the first book. They talk a little bit about Andamander Rake and stuff like that. But all in all, not much really gets mentioned too much about the first book. And I think that's kind of on purpose because what Erickson is building here is a like global wide conflict essentially. Like this is not just contained to one continent. You're on this like Genebakas, you're not on Genebakas at all. You are in Seven Cities, which is a whole nother continent, whole nother group like civils like cultures, civilizations, religions, people, animals, species is completely different from Genebakas. And that could be very intimidating to some people. I knew that going into reading Malazan. I knew reading Guardians of the Moon that Deadhouse was not going to be this a true sequel. It is in my mind a sequel because it still is like events wise. It takes place after Guardians of the Moon. But you won't get the full like actual. You're not going back to Janet Bax until Memories of Ice, and likewise, we're not going back to Seven Cities until probably book 4, House of Chains, which I think that could intimidate a lot of readers if you really want this sort of like, I don't know, continuous linear type of story instead of just kind of like art branching off type of storytelling. I think I never read anything like this, so it's really refreshing to me because I've read a lot of fantasy and a lot of sci-fi that does kind of do is very much linear, not linear, but you know what I mean. It's you're following the same group of characters for the most part from start to finish. Here, and there really are no main characters in this series. I'm coming to find out. So like everyone kind of has their own important storyline, whether it's part of the whole main arc or main story is left to be said. I don't know. I don't know how important Kalam or Crocus or Apslar, you know how I don't know if their events or their actions in book 2 how significant is that going to play into book 10 or book 7 or book 8. I have no idea. But it's still fun to kind of follow along and watch them and be immersed into their storyline. So I'll kind of get into some of the characters, and well, first let me talk about a little bit about Seven Cities. Seven Cities as a continent is fucking depressing. It's a very depressing. It's essentially a desert, just like this barren wasteland of a desert. Yeah, there's cities and civilizations, and there's like oases and like places of like there's different landscapes, but there's these giant deserts that Erickson does a very good job in just highlighting how bleak these deserts are. There's huge emphasis on bugs in this continent that we didn't really get much in Genebakas, which I think is a great distinction. Is just kind of show how different of an environment and just different how the ecosystems are on these continents, and it's like there's these like caper moths and blood flies that bite you and lay eggs, and then in larvae are like popping out of your face and creating these scars, and caper moths that are like these, I imagine, this moths the size of birds that are just like eating, that can like eat your flesh and everything. It's honestly insane. It adds a little bit of like the creepiness and the horror aspect of this book, and the bleakness, because guys, some of the shit that these characters go through is honestly insane. So that's kind of my review of Seven Cities, as brief as that is. Seven Cities as a continent is very this like desert wasteland, which I love desert wastelands. I think that I don't know. I love that kind of like like hopeless, fearful, just like wait, are we gonna survive? We're not gonna survive. It really adds a lot of drama and tension to the storyline, which I feel like with Guardians of the Moon, I was never really afraid to be in Janabakis or Jabakistan. I was never really afraid to be in the cities there. I felt like that was a kind of like our safe area, our safe zone. Like here is like I feel like you're nowhere is safe for any of our characters. You're just endlessly walking in the desert with hoping to find your next puddle of water or whatever. So that's my quick review on Seven Cities. Now for the characters, so you have Felicen, Haboric, Bowden. You have that sort of storyline. Then you have the Kalam, Crocus, Fitler, Apslar storyline. Then you have the Acario and Mappo storyline, and I kind of liked all the storylines for the most. Oh, I forgot you also have like Diker storyline, Diker and Coltrane storyline. Um, I really liked all the storylines at some point in the series. I think there's highs and lows for all of them. It kind of goes everywhere for me. Um, I think in terms of like my favorite characters, I think oddly enough, I think I love Felicen. And that might be controversial because she's kind of a brat in the first like half of this book, but it really makes sense kind of just what she becomes later on. And again, this is all like, I mean this is all spoilers obviously, but she Felicen pretty much becomes Shaik, which is the leader of this rebellion and Seven Cities. And I did not see that coming. And I think that's like amazing storytelling because the way Erickson was leading it up, it may seem like that Apsalar was going to become this new like Shaik rebellion force or leader of this rebellion, but kind of just turns it on its head and is like, no, we're going to give it to Felicen. And at first I was thinking, well, is this lazy story writing? Is this subverting expectations just for the sake of subverting expectations? But the I don't know. I don't think so. I think the explanations we get in the book make sense to me, and I'm happy to believe that. I'm happy for that, and honestly, I'm very excited to kind of see Felicen and Tavora sort of like meet up, like seeing her sister as the Abgen, and Tavora seeing her sister as Shaik as this rebellion, because I don't think Tavora is really all that evil. I don't know because she did send Bowden as a bodyguard, a former Talon to watch her. So I think we're gonna get a little bit like Felicen might like I don't know like try to kill her sister or try to do something and maybe like learn in that process learn that oh no like she was always on my side. I don't know, that's just kind of like a shot in the dark. I have no idea. So she was probably one of my favorite characters. Another favorite character I had was Coltrane, which is interesting because Coltrane has no POVs, and that's kind of a theme for a lot of these books. We're not really in like we're never in the leaders or like the godlike figures' minds very often. We are like we never were in Animander's Rake point of view. We're never in Shadow Thrones or Cotillions' point of view. We're never in Coltrane's point of view, which I think is fine. And I think that's I think that's good because it keeps the reader in the dark and keeps because the story, the characters are in the dark, and so that means we're also in the dark of what's going on. So it's like we're both trying to figure this out all together. I think probably my least favorite characters are probably I don't know, maybe Akarium and Mappo. And this is where I think on reread, I think I would probably appreciate their journey a little bit more. I think it's very sad what's happening. Essentially, you have Mappo has been tasked by these nameless ones to guard Akarium and make sure he doesn't remember regain memory of these memories, and Akarium keeps forgetting these memories that he can destroy civilizations very easily, and it's a very sad like existence. It's like, but I think Mappo kind of like his motivation changes. At first, he was doing it because of the nameless ones, but now he kind of like accepts the fact that Ikarium is my friend, and I want to be there for my friend. That's why I'm doing this, not because of what the nameless ones want. And I kind of jumped the gun between, but this is just me rambling. So there's no real structure to these videos. But so that's Mappo and Ikarium, probably my least favorite. But Coltrane, I honestly did not really care. In the beginning, I didn't really care for Diker's point of view. I felt Diker was like very, like all the other characters are making these important moves and plays and discovering things and discovering civilizations and they're making important moves and plays and they're making decisions. Diker just felt like this very like character that like doesn't interact. I don't know. It's like he just has no agency. I felt like. And I was very frustrated because I felt his chapters were just kind of watching Coltrane do stuff, and then which I know it makes sense because he's a historian, and that's what historians do. They like observe historical events, and Coltrane leading how like 30,000 refugees through this desert is history, and Diker is recording this history. So it kind of makes sense, and he's not he's not like a seasoned war veteran. Well, I guess he did. He did. There's he didn't mention he fought and was a soldier at some points and fought and everything, but he's long that's long past him now, and I wasn't really until the very end is when I kind of was like very sympathized with his character, and it's like they go through so much shit. I mean, everyone goes through shit in this book, but they go through so much shit in this book. Um, this battle after battle, and and to the point where it's like they're just they're just walking, like they're doing the same thing, trying to survive, and then it gets very very bleak, and then they all just die at the end anyway. And it's like, and I was kind of like, damn, like this is very very bleak, this is very very sad. And it really hit me like, damn, like, and it kind of, at least to me, how I interpret that is just like, that's just the reality that lost soldiers go through. Like, you're gonna go through a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of struggle and more, and sometimes, yeah, you're gonna die anyway, just like everyone else. And it kind of hurt a little bit. And I know Diker and Coltrane, like, it's pretty much implied that they are going to be reborn in some shape or form. At least Coltrane definitely is, with the crows and the epilogue. And it seems like Diker's soul maybe was captured in that glass bottle around his neck. So we'll see what that goes. I don't think we're gonna get any resolution in that in Memories of Ice. If anything, we're gonna probably see that in House of Chains. So that's months, and that's a while away until I get that confirmed for me. But we'll see how that plays out. So yeah, it wasn't until like reading that last Diker passage when he's being nailed to the cross, after have witnessed 10,000 soldiers also all nailed to like trees and everything. It was an emotional scene, and Diker was a character I didn't really care for a while until I saw him die, and it made me realize how great of a character writer Stephen Erickson is. That he made me care about a character that I thought I did not like for most of this book, and it wasn't until that moment when I was like, no, what, Diker? And usually I hate cheap out. I hate kind of cheap out deaths. Usually, I hate they die but then they come back. I usually hate those type of deaths, but I'm actually kind of glad they're coming back because their deaths were fucking brutal. Like, they still died technically. They're just being reborn. So I'm more okay with that than just like a fake out death. Because I feel like, no, they die. They're just coming back, and that's kind of like, to me, it's different than just like faking out your death. Like, no, there's like something, there's more for them to do in the story. So yeah, I think that storyline and the Felice and Shaik storyline were probably my favorite. But I also already found the whole Fiddler. So I'll break up the Fiddler. So Kalam goes on his own separate story. I'll talk a little bit about that too. But the Fiddler and Apsalar and like Path of Hands type of storyline, I thought that was also very interesting. And I think that's the storyline I think is going to have a lot of like readability value in terms of like having the full content of the series, because the Azov houses, I have no idea. I know that and this is me guessing and assuming, but the Azov people, these like lost houses or relics or artifacts, whatever, that were used by the Azov people, whoever they were, and now they're worshipped by the Nameless Ones, who I guess sometimes they like they guard these houses, I guess, but other people can guard these houses. You have like Moby guards it, and you have like some other people guarding it. You have Ikariam's father in the Azov house in Tremolor guarding it, and it turns out that he wanted his son to be part of the Azov house because that's how powerful Jaihuts are, I guess, that they know that they are dangerous to society, so he purposely put himself in this Azov house, and the Nameless Ones destroyed Mappo City to encourage him to guard Ikariam. So I feel like that whole storyline is just going to be more. I'm missing a lot of information, and I'm not going to get that until probably the end of the series or close to the end of the series or whatever. Probably more in House of Chains, honestly. And Yeah, and the Azov houses themselves are sort of these artifacts that keep power in check, I guess. Which, given that sort of context, it makes sense in Guardians of the Moon that the Azov house would appear to capture race into the Azov house. So that makes sense, I guess. How or why that gets initiated, I have no idea, but we'll see how that moves on into future books. Yeah, so overall, I really enjoy I really enjoyed the Path of Hands plot lines and the Ascendancy and the divers and soul taking. I thought that was really cool. The divers and soul taking, I thought it was fucking amazing. That these humans that can kind of, or I guess, well, not all of them are humans, but they can like turn into like other animals and species. I guess I don't know. They're like shapeshifters. Well, soul taking are shapeshifters, and so are divers. But divers can turn into shapeshift into like multiple types of animals and creatures. So think of like a person can shape into like a swarm of blood flies or a swarm of rats, which that happens, and it's fucking insane reading about that. Seeing a man just what reading that a man just turns into a bunch of rats is kind of crazy to me actually, and yeah, so I think that was also great. And honestly, like some characters do take a step back, and I'll talk a little bit about it. Like Crocus, I feel like doesn't do anything in this book, that's kind of weird to me because Crocus was kind of a big player in the last book with like having Opon's coin and being the coin bearer. But he gets rid of the coin and then and the first book, obviously. So kind of takes a back seat. But I mean, that's kind of what I mean. Where no one's really the main character in this series. Everyone is important in their own shape of form. So I don't think Crocus is done. I think he'll probably be important later on in the series, but we'll see about that. And yeah, we'll see where they go. You have Crocus, Apslar, and Apslar's father are back at Ikko Khan. Fiddler is staying on Seven Cities, so I'm assuming he's going to be a very important character in book 4 when I read that. And Fiddler was another character that I was really glad to kind of see because I feel like Fiddler, he didn't, I don't know, he felt like a very kind of like a background character in book 1, and it's kind of cool to see him make these decisions and be this kind of badass in book 2. And I think he also kind of served as kind of a proxy for the reader where like Fiddler wasn't sure what was happening, and there's like moments when Fiddler's just kind of like, guys, what is happening, what are you talking about? And it's like I feel like that's kind of like Fiddler kind of breaking the fourth wall and like turns to the reader and like, hey, look, I'm also confused, but it's okay, we're gonna figure this out together. And I think that's very cool, and I like that because you need that in this book and probably in the rest of this series. And I hope Fiddler stays around a little bit. So let's talk about Kalam. Kalam, I think I also really enjoy Kalam's storyline too. I almost didn't really hate anyone's storyline. I know I kind of said like Akarium and Mapos were my least favorite, but I really enjoyed their storyline. I think their storyline improved a lot more for me when they eventually met up with Fiddler and his group. Because I feel like they all kind of played off each other pretty well. But individually by themselves, I feel like I I didn't hate them, but weren't my favorite chapters. Kalam is a fucking badass. I think he's so fucking cool. I hope he survives to the very end. I don't want anything bad happening to Kalam. I want him to be with I forget her name, but his girlfriend now, I guess, if they're dating, I don't know. And there are 1,300 children that were refugees that Shadow Throne saved. So yeah, Kalam's storyline is very interesting. He kind of just goes on his whole other journey, and he kind of has a little bit of a crisis, I guess, because he's from the Seven Cities, and obviously he has a lot of love and admires Seven Cities and a lot of memories in Seven Cities, but he's also supports and values the Malazan Empire and understands the Malazan Empire. For even though it is like colonialism, it does provide stability to parts of Seven Cities, and he kind of understands that. So he is very loyal to the Malazan Empire, but he does realize that no, yes, it's kind of still shitty. So he does want to kill the Empress, and and I thought it was very funny at the very end where he just decides not to kill the Empress, and it kind of makes me question, like, because we're left to believe that at least in book 1, we're kind of left to believe that the Empress is bad and evil. But now in book 2, we're kind of left to believe that she is, yeah, we don't, we might not like what she's doing or what she did, but she did it in like the name of the empire, and like she had a good reason to do those things and a good cause to do those things. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't think there really are any bad or good people yet in this book. I think everyone's just sort of in this morally gray sort of category. Um, so we'll see. I think Memories of Ice might offer that more black and white, good versus evil that traditional fantasy kind of has. Not that I don't like this sort of like morally gray type of story writing and morally gray characters with motivations. It just I find it very interesting. But sometimes I just want like two big forces battling out and like good versus evil. I just want like a team to root for, you know? Because I don't know if I should be rooting for the Empress just yet, or I don't know if I should be rooting for Shadow Throne, or should I be rooting for Anamander Rake or Kaladin Brood, or like who should I be who should I be rooting for? Who should I be like talking about? Um, yeah, and so I know I love Apt. Apt's my favorite character. I love her so much. I hope she stays alive forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. I hope she never gets hurt. I hope nothing bad happens to her. I feel like something probably will bad happen to her, but I hope nothing bad happens to her. I hope she stays around a lot with all her new children. Um, in terms of questions, I mean, there's so many things to talk about that I would stay here forever. This video would be so fucking long if I mention every little thing. The only things I would really want more clarification on is the nameless ones, the Azov houses, and the Italian Mas, the IMAS, I'll call them, because they play a pretty significant, or at least, I don't know about significant, but they get mentioned a lot in this book, and obviously in the last book too. So they're, I don't know. I know there's like four elder races, the Jaghut and the IMAS, the Kachin Jamal, and I forget there's other. I know there's another one. He was in the Azov house, but I forget their name, the body's name or the race's name. And I feel like we don't really hear much of. I know we know a little bit about the Jaghut and Talimas and their war and their endless wars against each other. I kind of want more information about IMAS and are they like, because okay, yeah, like they're kind of like seen as these like guardians in a way, like they, you know, helped stop this like plague from the First Empire when they were trying to do these like soul taking rituals, and the like, I guess like mercy kill these people, I guess. But they also do mass genocide against the Jaghut, who for the most part seem very much like just peaceful people, like they don't really like civilization at all. So it's kind of interesting that why they would like perform this ritual to like, you know, make them undead humans but fight for eternity against the Jaghut. So I like more answers on that. And yeah, well, this video is getting pretty long, so I don't want to stay for too long. But yeah, Deadhouse Gates. I think it's a great book. I think I liked it more than Gardens of the Moon, and that's saying a lot because I love Gardens of the Moon. But Deadhouse Gates, if you haven't started reading Malazan, if you like I said, you should not read Malazan as an introduction to fantasy. Read something else. If you read up all the other fantasy series out there and you were like looking for something like a fresh take on fantasy, read Malazan, Book of the Fallen. You won't be disappointed. It has. There's just such crazy shit in this book, that stuff that I never even thought was possible in a fantasy series, and I think that's so cool. And yeah, that's my review for Deadhouse Gates. I'm gonna start reading Memories of Ice probably this week, probably most likely today. I might try and get through the prologue at least, and just start tackling this beast of a book, because everyone, from what I see, everyone puts this book very high on their list. Everyone puts book 3 as like the, you know, top cream of the top. Like every list I see is usually in someone's top 3 or 5 or even their favorite book. So I'm very curious to see. I'm very interested to see like how it holds up to me, and because I know it takes place simultaneously with Deadhouse, and there are scenes in Deadhouse that I know we're gonna see the other side, the other point of view, from the Memories of Ice point of view. So I'd be very curious to see how that's gonna play out. So yeah, Deadhouse Gates. If I give it a rating, 8.5, probably, maybe. Yeah, no, yeah, about that. So yeah, there he goes. Deadhouse Gates. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye.